Guess who's back?
Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to get into our NFC South preview. But before we get into that, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. We produce NFL and Dallas Cowboys content, so if you're interested in that,
quality NFL
stay tuned. We're gonna try and pump out a video for every division. I think this was our fourth now, so let's get into it. Right into the we start with the team that had the worst record. So we're going to start off with the Panthers. The Panthers, they had a 5-11 record. There's a lot of change, a lot of turnover on this team. Ron Rivera is no longer the head coach. He was fired, I believe, with 4 games left in the season. Greg Olson's no longer back with the team. Luke Kuechly retired after the season. And of course, the most recent thing is, well, they cut Cam Newton a while back, but he's officially with his new team, the Patriots. So no Cam Newton. Pretty much this team that was built around those 4 names, and then including Thomas Davis, who wasn't with the team in 2019. I mean, that whole Panthers of old is gone. The Super Bowl Panthers, Super Bowl 50 Panthers is gone, and it's a new era. Matt Rule, the head coach, now he was formerly of Baylor and Temple, and then he also brought along Joe Brady, who was the LSU passing game coordinator, of course, the historic LSU Tigers of 2019. So he'll be running the offense for Matt Rule. And the big thing, David Tepper, the new owner, he's all about analytics, and in their interview process, that was one thing that Rule really included, I guess, in his resume. And then he also talked about the culture, the system that he wanted to implement from the top down. And that's something that he's done at every one of his 10 years as head coach. It's something that people spoke about was the culture that he instilled at Temple. And of course, Baylor, whenever he came in at Baylor, they needed a complete culture change after Art Briles and the whole scandal involved around him. But
so when he was interviewing for the Giants job, it was like, I think the Panthers were like, you get complete control, right? Of it, like. Yeah,
I think he was on the way to, or he was about to leave for the Giants interview, and the Panthers basically pulled him back and were like, hey, you get everything. And then I believe of all the rookie head coaches, actually of all the new head coach signings, he got the biggest and longest contract, I believe. So David Tepper, as new owner of the Panthers, he's really trying to, I guess, pick and choose exactly what he wants for the future of this team. And the next big piece of news was they paid Christian McCaffrey, who's basically the workhorse of their offense, and a big extension. He is now the highest paid running back in the NFL over Ezekiel Elliott. Say what you will about running backs, but McCaffrey is very efficient with his carries whenever and all the carries he gets, and then he's a big contributor in the passing game too. Whenever he came into the league in 2017, he completely changed that offense. Really what it was is for those last few years of Cam Newton's tenure in the Panthers was they could not keep anybody healthy in that team. And Ron Rivera, I think, is a good head coach, but sometimes it's just time for new blood, and I think that's what they're kind of going for, especially with the ownership change. So
the next big thing, I think, was with new blood and getting rid of Cam, new quarterback. They got their quarterback in Bridgewater, signed him to a 3-year deal. If you ask me, I don't think Bridgewater is like a world beater, but he's pretty efficient. He's taken the Vikings to the playoffs before with some good surrounding cast, but I think he gets the job done and he wows you with some throws every now and then. I think with the right weapons, I mean, they also got Robbie Anderson and they signed McCaffrey to the deal.
They had already had DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel on the outside, so they got 3 really, really speedy and shifty receivers on the outside. The speed and shiftiness of Christian McCaffrey. It's going to be a fun offense to watch. Is it going to be a record breaker or anything? Probably not. They didn't draft a quarterback in the draft, which we'll get into. So Bridgewater, it's really his job, straight out. I mean, they paid him a pretty good contract. Will Grier, the draft pick from last year, is still there as well. But in his time playing in 2019, he didn't really wow. But, injuries could happen, and he may have to step in and possibly have another shot showing what he's got.
They also signed the quarterback, P.J. Walker.
From the XFL. He was like the big standout of the whole XFL, one of the bigger players. And then oddly enough, we'll get into the draft, they also signed probably the biggest defensive star of the XFL, Kenny Robinson, the safety. They drafted him in the 5th round. But let's get into the draft. Starting in the 1st round, They take Derek Brown, the big defensive tackle out of Auburn, just a massive one-tech that is just going to completely, change the nature of their defensive line, because they were the worst team against the rush last year. As we as Cowboys fans know, both of their defensive tackles that were on the Panthers last year, which were their starters, Gerald McCoy and Dontari Poe, are now with the Cowboys, no longer with the Panthers. Last year, Kawan Short, their other defensive line standout, he had an injury and was out pretty much almost the entire season. I believe he only played 2 games. So he'll be coming back to pair along with Derek Brown. And then in the second round, they double down on defensive line. And they take Yeturgros Matos, who had some first-round buzz, a really good edge rusher from Penn State, who every year at Penn State, he increased his sack total. So I thought that was a really great value where they got him. But as we go down this list, it was all defense. Every single one of their picks was defense. Their other second-round pick, Jeremy Chin, the athletic freak safety, a small school guy, but, I mean, if they can make it work with his measurables. I feel like if they dedicated all their draft assets to the defense, then that means Matt Rule has something in mind that he has a way that he wants to build his defense. Troy Pride Jr., the cornerback from Notre Dame, as previously mentioned, Kenny Robinson from the XFL, Bravion Roy, defensive tackle from Baylor, and then another corner, Stanley Thomas Oliver III. So, like we said, all defense. That just tells me they believe in what they have on offense so far.
I expect the top 3 to start right away.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to really need them too, because as we said, all the old Panthers, the Panthers of old, which was this team was built on the defense, and then on offense, Cam Newton, it's all gone. So it feels like to me Matt Rule's going to have his grips, of course, around the whole team, but he's going to have control of that defense, and Joe Brady's going to have his control of the offense, and we'll see if they make it fun in the NFC South. I think that pretty much wraps it up for the Panthers. So next in line, the next 2 teams actually both went 7-9, but we'll go next with the Falcons. They were, of course, as mentioned, 7-9. I feel like Dan Quinn, of all the head coaches, last year was on the hottest seat, and somehow the team showed signs of life at the end of 2019, and he was brought back.
The players really spoke volume with their play and with themselves too, coming out and saying that they want Quinn to stay. And surprisingly, in a league where mostly you see a transition to offensive minded, they go ahead and stayed with Quinn.
Yeah, so just to give you a little glimpse at they lost 7 of their first 8 games in 2019, and then after the bye, they kind of regrouped. I believe it was Julio Jones said that we want him. It was something along the lines of, we believe in our head coach, we want our head coach, something like that. They ended up winning 6 of the remaining 8 games. They beat New Orleans and San Francisco. So they kind of showed, hey, we still got some juice, and that was maybe the one thing that made the owner Arthur Blank keep Dan Quinn around, and even before, whenever it was circling like it looked for sure he was going to be gone, even Arthur Blank was non-committal on whether they were going to fire him or not. I don't think he really ever wanted to get rid of him, and the team solidified around Dan Quinn and was able to, I guess, basically win him his job back. So Dan Quinn is back. Another team that, man, they've just had really bad luck with injuries. Mm-hmm. But, of course, this is a stacked division, and a lot of new talent, veteran talent has gotten infused. So the core of Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, and Calvin Ridley, that offense is going to have to shine. And defensively, man, they haven't been good defensively since their Super Bowl season. I don't expect them to be that much better this year, but that is Dan Quinn's supposed forte.
I did like Dante Fowler, bringing them on the defense side, yeah.
Yeah, Vic Beasley didn't work out for them. Their former first-round pick, he did not return to the team. He's now with the Titans, so they were going to have to find pass rush somehow. And at the time, Fowler was probably the best guy available. So, but like I said, I don't expect any strides from the defense. But going into the draft, their first-round pick was A.J. Terrell, the corner from Clemson, a very safe pick. After losing Desmond Trufant in the offseason, they really needed somebody to slide in and some youth at that position. In the second round, Marlon Davidson, the big defensive end from Auburn, another mauler, grinder guy. He'll be good on the defensive line for them. And then an underrated pick that I liked by them was Matt Hennessy, the offensive lineman from Temple. Offensive line, the Falcons actually have a pretty good offensive line, but health, that was one of their biggest areas where health was an issue, was on the offensive line. They had to rotate and shift guys in and out all over, but they've actually dedicated quite a few draft resources to their offensive line, but they just couldn't quite keep it together. But as we know, I mean, these Falcons, they have the makings, I think, of a contender. Of course, they made it to the Super Bowl, and it didn't work out, the 28-3 thing. But can they run it back in a stacked division? I don't know. What are your feelings on this team, RJ?
I feel like keeping Quinn was actually a good thing to keep some continuity within the team. They showed a lot of fight at the end. I thought Gurley was a good signing, considering, we say what we say about running backs, but they didn't sign him at an expensive deal or anything like that. And if he can really rejuvenate his career over there, I think they have the chance to be a top offense. I think they have a hole, though, at the third receiver spot because they usually stay in that personnel. They really only have Julio and Ridley there, but I feel like Gurley could play a big role. They signed Treadwell. Treadwell had a very disappointing start to his career out of Ole Miss with the Vikings and stuff. A lot of people had a lot of high hopes for him coming out of there, and he really hasn't lived up to it. So he's got a chance to rejuvenate his career in Atlanta. But as we all know, I mean, we'll get into it in a minute, but I feel like the Saints had another good, efficient draft, and they're pretty stacked for the next couple of years too.
Yeah, this is going to be pretty competitive.
Besides quarterback.
Ever since Kyle Shanahan left, of course, he's now the head coach of the 49ers. The Falcons have kind of struggled with their identity on offense and just kind of underperformed. But maybe they'll be able to, regroup and get back to that top-tier offensive level. Next team, the Bucs. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers also went 7-9. I love their head coach, Bruce Arians. I was an advocate everybody was an advocate for firing Jason Garrett at some point, but post-2017, I really wanted them to get rid of him and try and lure Bruce Arians out of retirement to be the head coach. And that was kind of like a pipe dream, but then he ended up coming out of retirement and became the head coach of the Bucs. I think it was very, very surprising, the fit and everything. Of course, Jameis Winston was a quarterback, and he put up some incredible numbers. Led the league in passing and finished with 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. So I think that was his interview process, whether he was going to be Bruce Arians' quarterback going into the future, and they decided, nah, that's not the way we're going to go. And, of course, the big storyline, Tom Brady. He declined to sign with the Patriots or re-sign with the Patriots, and he decided to go to Tampa Bay. And then later on...
who doesn't want to retire in South Beach?
They decided to trade for his running mate, Rob Gronkowski, pulled him out of retirement, and now he's with the Bucs as well. So, of course, that's the big storyline about the Bucs.
I was really surprised that they were able to... It was kind of got under the radar, but they retained Sue, and I thought that was really...
Defensive line, as far as defensive tackle, I mean, there's still guys out there. Snacks Harrison is still a free agent, so the defensive tackle market was really, really slow moving. Still is, even pass rushing market. So, them getting to keep Sue, he was obviously not in the prime of his career, but he's still a solid contributor for them. They're also bringing back the 2019 NFL sack leader, Shaq Barrett. They placed a franchise tag on him. They finally agreed to terms. I believe it was like a $15 million dollar tag this year.
Some monster games.
They had a really good defense last year, led by Todd Bowles. Of course, he was a former Arizona Cardinals DC with Bruce Arians, and he had a head coaching gig with the Jets that didn't really work out. But, I mean, his forte is defense. His defenses have always been great. So I really like what they have on the defensive end. Devin White, former first-round pick out of LSU. Levante David, the other great linebacker they have. I mean, they really have the Vita Vea, also defensive tackle. Him and Sue together were really a great 1-2. So defensively, they were set. And then if you believe in Brady, then they have everything that you could possibly want on offense.
Yeah, and then when it comes to the draft, I felt like with some teams that are good and that they're going to be contending and they know that they're going to contend and have a chance to do something, they really just let it fall to them, and they couldn't have ended up with anybody better as far as position and the value and who they got. Yeah,
Tristan Wirfs, the offensive tackle from Iowa, all the way back at 13. He was rumored to go all the way up, could have possibly gone to the Giants in the top 5 picks. So for them to get him was extreme value. That was one issue that the Bucs had, was protecting the quarterback. So, and then of course, Brady's not the most mobile guy. Yes, he is. he's mobile in the pocket, but you really got to give him the protection he needs for this offense to work. So Wirfs will really solidify the offensive line for them. Antoine Winfield, he was one of my favorite players overall in this entire draft. They were able to get him in the second. Really, really love his energy. His knock was always that he was small, but he's a big hitter. And just an overall playmaker. A great addition to Todd Bowles' defense. And if you go back and look at some of the players that played under Todd Bowles, they say that those were some of their the Honey Badger. Tyrann Mathieu comes to mind. He loved playing for Todd Bowles. Antoine Winfield could be that new era Tyrann Mathieu for Todd Bowles in the Bucs defense. Keyshawn Vaughn, the running back from Vanderbilt, actually before the 2019 collegiate season, he was like hyped up as possibly being the best running back in the country, but overall that entire Vanderbilt offense really underperformed. They had a number of offensive prospects.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. If there's any position on the Bucs offense that's really just uncertain, it's the running back position. As far as last year, just nobody could be consistent back there.
Peyton Barber was basically the lead back. He's no longer with the team. Ronald Jones, the former USC Trojan,
he had his ups and downs.
Yeah, he kind of turned it on towards the end, and I've seen some workout videos of him this offseason. It seems like he's working hard. I mean, of course, there's new blood in there, so. And who doesn't want to roll in this new look Tom Brady, Tampa Bay offense? They also took Tyler Johnson, the wide receiver from Minnesota. I thought that was a good value in the 5th round. Of course, this was one of the deepest receiver classes in the basically NFL history. So, but overall, I mean, it really comes down to, for this team, do you believe in Brady? Do you believe in Gronk? Do you believe in these older players basically at the end of their career juicing up and coming, I'm not juicing up, but re-energizing and coming out to contend this year? I don't know. I believe in their head coach. But Brady, I think, is definitely in the decline as far as his career goes. But it's really going to come down to how they manage the offense, because the weapons are there. We haven't even mentioned Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who are arguably maybe the best duo in the NFL if you're just considering the top two. So how do you see this offense playing out in 2020, RJ?
I feel, man, I just had a train of thought. If there was any place that you would want Brady to go with towards the decline of his career, it would be Bruce Arians. And I think as long as he's efficient and they're able to work together, because Arians and Ben didn't get along. Ben's that type of guy that I feel like kind of like Brady too, with the authority and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like it's like, how do you not want to? As far as Brady goes, this is the best talent he's had in his career since 2007.
Yeah, probably since the almost perfect season.
2007
and with Welker and all those guys.
With Gronk, I would expect them to manage him week by week. And I'm not meaning that he's injured or anything, but like really.
But that's basically what his career was for the last 4 years, and that's what I was going to say. Brady, I think you could expect more of the same. It's not going to be elite Brady, but he does have the weapons, so he could turn it on. But as far as Gronk goes, I don't expect the Gronk of old. I think don't take a year off and come back. And
I think that's why they're like, no, we're not trading OJ Howard. Like, we're not going to trade OJ Howard and stuff like that. And Gronk needs to be managed week to week, and if he needs a Wednesday off every single week. We know we've seen that before with players, where it's just they have your Veterans Day or whatever it is.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get into the division champs, the stalwarts of the NFC South, the New Orleans Saints. They had a 13-3 record, pretty much all intact. This is one of the most complete teams overall in the NFL, and they have some of the most returning pieces in this division. And it starts with Drew Brees. He comes back. I have here on the notes, back for one last ride. It feels like we've been saying that for like the last 3 seasons. It's in the playoff stage. I mean, going back to 2017, which was the Minnesota Miracle, Stephon Diggs' catch. Of course, 2018 was the Rams' non-call defensive pass interference. And then this past year, they just couldn't get it done again. So, and of course, they went through a stretch where Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback of the team. But, I mean, I believe he led them to a 3-1 record in the 4 games that he played while Brees was out. So, I mean, this team is good. Is one of the better teams in the NFL. Are they going to be able to run it back? I believe so. But in the draft, they didn't have very many picks, but they made the most of it. In the very first pick, the first round of the 24th pick, they picked Cesar Ruiz, the center from Michigan. Protecting Breeze is always going to be a priority. Last year, I believe it was, they took Eric McCoy, who plays center for them. So Ruiz will probably be playing guard, but I mean, the interior of their offensive, basically the entire offensive line.
And Ramczyk is basically the best right tackle in the game right now.
Yep, Teron Armstead, one of the better left tackles in the game. I mean, they have a great offensive line. In the third round, they've got a value in Zach Bond, the linebacker from Wisconsin. He was one of the better pass rushers in the NCAA.
He's more of an edge on linebacker, and that's just like Cam and Davenport are so good already, and it's just that just adds a lot of more strength to even one of your strongest suits on the defense.
One of the underrated picks, I think, in the third round was Adam Troutman, the tight end from Dayton. Of course, Breeze hasn't had that super dynamic tight end weapon since Jimmy Graham left. Last year, Jared Cook was their new addition, and he did pretty good in spots. But maybe Troutman could be that new guy, that young guy that really pops for them this year. But overall, I mean, they only had one other pick, which was their 7th rounder, and they took it on Tommy Stevens, the quarterback from Mississippi State. So, I mean, really, it's the guys that they're coming back. Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, I mean, and then, of course, Drew Brees on the defense. They have one of the better defenses. Demario Davis, Cameron Jordan, Marcus Davenport, which was their former first-round pick from UTSA.
They did lose their linebackers coach, though, which I felt played a big role in their play.
Now the current defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. So, I mean, the Saints have to be the favorites.
And Emmanuel Sanders signing, which surprised a lot of people considering their cap space, and they were able to work something out. That was a really, really good signing. I wanted Dallas to sign him, but lo and behold.
The Saints, I mean, they've been really, really effective these last few years without having a true number 2 receiver. So adding Sanders, I mean, that's a whole other dynamic to this offense. I mean, they also are bringing back Taysom Hill, the big enigma. I mean, what the heck what is he? I don't know. He's a quarterback. He's a running back. He's a receiver. He's just kind of a do-it-all gadget player for the Saints. But they really believe in him. They signed him to a pretty good deal. I mean, really, it is. They're just reloading, and let's see if we could do it finally. Is this going to be Bree's final season? I don't know.
I think it will be. From what the numbers I've seen, he was very good and efficient in that short to medium range. But after that, you could really see a fall off, like the biggest fall off since we've seen it throughout his whole entire career.
Ball, yeah. But he is still one of the most accurate passers in the NFL history, really. But yeah, I mean, you do see some velocity lost. But I don't know. I kind of have this feeling too, like with Tom Brady coming into the division, maybe it's like that reinvigoration that Breeze needs. Like, I'm not gonna go out until this guy goes out. We'll go out together. Like, let's battle it. But who knows? Maybe this is Tom Brady's final year. We don't really know. But I mean, let's go back through this division. How do we see it playing out? I already said I think the Saints are the favorites. They're gonna make the playoffs. They're gonna be, honestly, they could be the number 1 seed in the NFC this year.
What's the schedule like?
I don't know. Good question, but
I would say if it'll come down if they play a game at the end.
Well, we don't even really know, honestly, because we don't know if it's going to be a full 16-game season or not. With the pandemic going on, we don't really know what's going to happen. But I think the Saints for sure are going to be the lead dogs again in this division. I think the next biggest question, I don't see the Panthers making it. It's a first year for head coach. I think if they win 6 games, kind of like the Bengals, that'll be a win for them.
It'll take a while for that defense to sink together too.
Yeah, but who knows? Maybe with a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, he goes out and impresses and they go 8-8 or something. The Falcons, I think, I don't know. Maybe they go 10-6. Maybe they somehow eke into the wild card. And then they could also just, revert back to the 7-9. I don't know.
I think as we go through the divisions, you'll see that each NFC division has a chance for 3 teams to make the playoffs. But that's not going to happen that way. When we post to the AFC side, it's like you pretty much know. Yeah,
you can't really factor in injury. You don't know what's going to happen once the games start playing. But I mean, the Falcons, I mean, they've been contenders in the past. They could get back to that form, especially with Dan Quinn coming back. Will they take that energy from the end of last year and bring it into 2020? Who knows? But of course, the biggest headline, just like we talked about them, will the Bucs make the playoffs? Will they make it? I think they make it, but they're going to be a wild card.
Yeah.
They're not going to. Maybe I think they're like a 10-6 team. I don't think they're going to be this juggernaut that people are predicting. There's a lot of moving parts that are going to have to be synced in, and just Tom Brady's played his entire career in a certain system. He's going to be going into a new environment. Just playing in Florida is going to be completely different from playing in New England. Getting used to the new players. Gronk, after a year off coming back in. There's just like so many different things, but I think overall they already had enough talent to. I think they could have won more games than 7-9. It's just Jameis. He had a lot of boneheaded plays. Can't really call it any. They have plenty of talent on this team, defensive and offensively. I think Brady will take them up just a little bit of a notch, and they'll be able to squeak it out into a wild card.
And with another thing too, with everything that's happening, it's about who's able to get ready the fastest. Mm-hmm. Like as far as effectively and being what's the word I'm looking for? Well put together with everything going into the week and leading up to game day with everything that's going on. And if you're going to give that to anybody in the division right now, it's definitely the Saints.
And then, to kind of tie into that, the Bucs. We saw Brady working out with the Tampa Bay guys pretty early. They were probably some of the first ones actually working out all together all the way back in March. So he's trying to take that mindset of continuity and getting efficient in the offense really early. So, this is definitely going to be the most talked about division. Quarterback heavy. You got all pro style quarterbacks in Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Drew Brees. It's going to be a really, really entertaining division to watch. Not some of those crap blowouts that you would see in the Superdome and all that. It's going to be very, very competitive. So, do you have anything else to add on any of these teams?
Oh man. I say if Atlanta does something. You'd expect an MVP type of year from Matt Ryan, like it was in 2016. Was it 2016? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, it's like we said, it's going to be competitive. Who knows what's going to happen, but you can always count on the Saints.
Yeah.
But I think that pretty much wraps up this NFC South preview. If you enjoyed this video, if you have any thoughts on this division, or is one of these teams your favorite teams? What do you think is going to happen with Tom Brady? Leave a comment below. Like this video. Of course, subscribe if you like NFL content. If you like Dallas Cowboys content, that is what we produce. We appreciate you watching this video, and we'll see you next time.
Yo, I ain't here for the money.